Today we have a new story to tell you. Let's start now. Mark weighed 325 pounds. He and Sarah had recently lost some friends to heart attacks. She started to worry about Mark. In short, she decided to limit their sexual activity to only 4 times a year until he reached his weight loss targets. They celebrated 4 occasions: Valentine's Day, their anniversary, and both of their birthdays. Mark lost a lot of weight over 2 years and benefited from it. Sex was infrequent as goals were achieved along the way. He lost a lot of weight and reached around 207 pounds. At that moment, he felt like giving up. In the end, he had lost 118 pounds, and it was really difficult. When Mark said he wanted to leave, Sarah firmly refused. That's when she made a promise, the promise that sparked this story. If you leave, you will only have sex 4 times a year. I have physical needs, so even though we will only be intimate a few times a year, I will have to seek fulfillment elsewhere. After Sarah made that threat, she saw her marriage start to have problems. It began to shake when Mark suddenly looked up at her with a surprised and puzzled expression in his eyes. She noticed her marriage starting to fall apart when she saw him looking sad and hurt because of what she had said. She noticed her marriage starting to fall apart as his sadness turned into anger and disgust. At that moment, she realized she had made a big mistake. Sarah had put a lot of pressure on the man she loved in order to satisfy her own wishes. He lost a lot of weight, and then she threatened to have sex with other people as a form of punishment. How could she make such a foolish mistake? Why did she do that to him? Mark was angry. He said, "I have worked very hard for 2 years to lose more than 100 pounds to make you happy, Sarah. It has been extremely hard for me, and you have not been intimate with me. As a tool to motivate me to keep going. I did everything for you, Sarah, because I love you and wanted to make you happy. Now, when I feel like I can't go on, you encourage me by saying that you will keep going, to leave me and meet your needs by being unfaithful with someone else. You might not be aware of it, Sarah, but you have just destroyed our marriage. You have brought a big problem into our home, and now I don't know what will happen. Never be imprisoned again. You must have considered being intimate with other men, or else you wouldn't be here. Raise your demands so fast. How can I trust you after this? Have you been having sexual relations to fulfill your needs for the past 2 years? Sarah, you are so frustrating. Curse you. I'm not sure what to think about our marriage anymore. Dude, you totally messed it up. That's all I can say." Sarah told Mark, "I didn't intend to do that. I would never have been intimate with another person. Please, Mark, I didn't intend to do that." Mark simply stared at her and said, "How can I trust anything you say at this moment? You looked very serious a few minutes ago." Mark stood up from the table in the kitchen and went out through the back door to the garage. "I need some time to think." Sarah began to cry as she couldn't control her emotions. She was crying because she knew he was correct. He started to doubt, and it would be hard to get rid of it. Leave. Sometimes people say things without thinking, and that's what happened in this situation. Sarah didn't consider how her actions would impact Mark. She was very proud of him for what he had achieved, but she became greedy and desired even more. She believed it was mine. He has already done a lot for me, but I was selfish and wanted more, and now I will receive it. To regain what I lost. Mark searched through the garage for an hour. He wasn't doing anything specific, just keeping his hands occupied while he pondered things. Mark didn't believe his wife had been unfaithful to him in the past 2 years, but he had doubts. Of course, before he would have been confident. But now, after what she said, he couldn't be sure anymore. Don't be certain anymore. He also didn't know if she would have been unfaithful to him in the future before he did. He had never believed it before, but now he was no longer sure. He said, "I have to figure it out." Mark returned to the house. Sarah was still sitting at the kitchen table looking very tired. She had red eyes and a red nose from crying. Mark realized and felt guilty, but he was committed to sticking to his decision. "Sarah, this is what will happen. I am stopping the diet immediately. You don't have to worry about us not having sex because I am abstaining. You are fired. We can have sex 4 times a year, as you previously suggested. If you prefer to avoid it completely, that's okay as well. I am not concerned. You do what you need to do. I want to let you know that if you decide to be intimate with someone else, I will not be happy when I find out. And I will find out. Your partner will be severely hurt and beaten up. I am certain I will break some of his ribs and definitely his nose. I am sure his eyes will be very swollen by the time I finish, so he won't be able to look at you lovingly in the future. And depending on how I feel, it could be even more difficult, requesting your input. If you betray me, I will break up with you very quickly. You will be independent and able to meet your needs whenever and wherever you want. I would never stay married to someone who cheats, so make your own bed, my dear. I want you to know that I will be keeping a close eye on everything you do from now on. I no longer trust you, so you should be very cautious in all your actions. You won't be able to be cautious enough to prevent me from discovering if you cheat. I am leaving for a bit. I won't be back for lunch, but I'll be home for dinner. If you don't want to cook, that's fine. We can get a pizza or Chinese food delivered if you don't feel like cooking. Mark took his car keys from the counter and went out through the back door into the garage. Shortly after, Sarah heard the garage door open and Mark's car leaving. Sarah exclaimed, "Oh my goodness. I can't believe this. Why did I do something so foolish?" She started crying again and sat there regretting not staying quiet. About an hour later, she stood up to use the bathroom, then went back to her bed and cried again. When Mark got home later that day, he found her in the same position. Just like many husbands who thought their wife was cheating, Mark decided to investigate. Work independently. He believed the simplest way to begin was to go to the phone companies and ask. A list of phone calls made from their landline and his wife's mobile phone. Previously, he had mentioned his name, so he was confident he would receive the reports without any issues. The phone company said he could receive the call logs electronically. They were able to transfer the call records from the past 3 years onto a CD for a small charge. He happily paid the amount and left the office with all the things he wanted. Yes, he asked for 3 years because he wanted to return to a point before he began. The diet was to find out why Sarah stopped talking to him in the beginning. He went to the phone company and asked for the same information. At first, they were unsure because he needed information from his wife's phone number. However, Mark mentioned that it was a shared account with his name clearly listed first on the documents, so there was no reason for them to refuse any information he asked for. They also provided the information in digital format for $20. Mark believed it was too much, but he thought it was a good investment to be able to access the information more easily. However, he did mention that he might consider changing his phone company in the future. When Mark got home at about 4 p.m., he found Sarah sleeping on their bed. He chose to allow her to rest and return to their office at home. He locked the office door to avoid interruptions. Then, he sat at the computer and saved all the information from the 2 CDs into a folder in his documents. He had already planned how he would carry out his search. He planned to begin 2 years ago and make a list of all phone numbers. He phoned during the first month of his diet when Sarah had limited his food intake. Having sex 4 times a year and receiving rewards for meeting goals. That was in September 2008. In September made 96 calls from their home phone to 19 different numbers. He discovered that by using the phone company's provided format, he could organize the information in various ways. As a result, he made a list with numbers indicating the call number, date, time, and length. Once he understood the system, it took him around an hour and a half to create it. Make a list of all the phone calls made from their home phone in the past 2 years. He was about to begin checking Sarah's cell phone information when he heard someone trying to open the office door. The door was locked, so nobody could enter, and he kept all his work safe. And he hid all proof of his actions. He turned off the computer, opened a door, and found Sarah looking very messy and upset. Here she is, with red eyes and a red nose from crying and sniffing occasionally. She had her head down and looked up at Mark's eyes only after some hesitation. She told Mark, "I apologize for what I did to you. I understand that you are upset with me. I realize that I acted selfishly and unkindly towards you. I'm sorry. I know you achieved great results with your diet, and I should have too. Tell me if you kept going or not. It was up to you to decide, but I think I just felt overwhelmed by the situation and got carried away. Gone. I beg for your forgiveness," Mark answered Sarah. "I forgive you for now because I don't know anything else. I love you, and I lost all the weight for you. I had a hard time with it for 2 years and stopped having sex during that time, all because of you in the beginning. I couldn't continue. Sadly, as I mentioned, the problem is present now, and I need to deal with it. I'm not sure if you are dishonest, and it's making me anxious. If you have never been unfaithful to me before and you don't cheat on me in the future, we should be together. Be fine. I need to be sure before I can feel confident, so you'll just have to accept that for now. I didn't make this mess. You acted fast with your brief comment and warning. I can't believe you expected me to react that way. But it seems you never thought about it. How it would make me feel or how it would affect my trust in you, or you wouldn't have expressed your actions." Sarah wanted Mark to forgive her and forget about what she had said, but that did not happen. She thought, maybe I deserved everything that was happening to me, but I wished it could all just disappear. She slowly nodded in agreement, then walked back to the bedroom with a determined expression and closed the door. She was lying on her bed once more, with tears running down her face but not crying. Mark opened the door to the bedroom and said, "Sarah, are you hungry?" Sarah told Mark that she was not hungry. Mark went to his car and drove to a nearby place called Grisham's. He and Sarah had visited that place for drinks multiple times, and the food was really good. He knew he could have some beers and a tasty bacon cheeseburger. In the last 2 years, he had only drunk a maximum of 2 beers per week. A burger with bacon and cheese. Tonight he was going to finally give in and have what he desired. He knew he didn't want to gain weight like he did in the past, but tonight he decided to treat himself and enjoy his dinner, even though he was feeling sad. It was hard for his wife because he hated seeing her in pain, but he also felt hurt and betrayed by her actions. When he arrived home, he returned to his workspace and started reviewing the list of phone calls from Sarah's mobile phone. Since he was already familiar with the process, completing the list of cell phones was easier for him, and he finished in half the usual time. After looking at both lists, Mark found out that in 2 years there were a total of 3,482 calls made from 45 different phone numbers. He chose to organize the phone calls by number and found some unexpected outcomes. His cell phone received nearly 300 calls, while around 200 calls were made to his parents' phone and a similar amount to Sarah's parents' phone. Each of Sarah's sisters had a similar amount, and he had about half of that. Hermano Juan. Also, Mark made some calls to friends whose numbers he knew, and a few to numbers he didn't recognize. As he checked the list, he found more than 200 calls to a phone number he didn't know and over 50 calls to another unfamiliar number. Then he noticed that there were more than 30 calls made to other numbers over a period of 2 years. He thought those could be places like hair salons, shops, a church, and so on. Mark was not concerned about those statistics, so he simply made a note of them and returned to focus on the two main, unfamiliar numbers. Based on Mark's personality, he chose to improve his research by organizing the phone calls from those two numbers by day and time. The unexpected findings made him feel scared, and he quickly started feeling very suspicious and angry. Every Wednesday at 11 a.m., Mark attended a meeting with his boss and other department leaders at a nearby restaurant that had meeting rooms. They gathered for a meeting for 1 hour, then took a 1-hour lunch break, and completed their work at 2:30 p.m. or 3 p.m. every week without fail. He received a phone call on his mobile every week at 10:55 a.m. while he was working. Yes, there were some weeks that Mark missed, and he immediately realized it was during his vacation. But every Wednesday at 10:55 a.m. was the usual time. Every Wednesday at 11:05 a.m., a call was made to one of the two numbers that Mark didn't know. Yes, he was feeling very hot. It's too much of a coincidence not to raise suspicions. He realized then that what he was about to discover would not bring him much joy. When Severing checked the second number, he quickly understood what those calls were about. Everything happened on Friday at 1:05 p.m. One Friday afternoon every month, Mark played golf with his brother and their best friends. Companions. They played a full round of golf until around 5:30 p.m. and then went to the clubhouse, having a few drinks before going home. He usually arrived home before 6:30 p.m. on Fridays. He would take a shower and go out to eat with Sarah. What made him angry was that Sarah always called him right before he started playing golf to let him know she loved him and said she would wait for him until he finished his work and came back home. He understood the situation now, but he still didn't have any evidence or know who was involved. She was unfaithful to him when Sarah ended their relationship, or maybe it had begun earlier. So he returned for another year and found out that the same calls were made once every month, for the 3 months before he was disconnected. Sarah had been doing it for 3 months before, but not as frequently. Now he just needed to find out who was responsible and then choose what to do next. He believed it would be simple to discover who. He checked the first number and found out it was a cell phone number that was not in the directory. He checked the second number and discovered it belonged to a person named Tony Batali. Mark was familiar with Tony Batali. He worked as a fitness instructor at the gym. Sarah was the one who originally found him for Mark. Mark thought that Sarah would call Tony on the Fridays when he played golf. He wrote down the address in his call log and decided to go out for a bit longer. When he returned to Grisham's, he sat down and drank a few more beers. When things calmed down after the busy dinner time, Mark asked the pretty bartender Brenda for a favor. He briefly explained what happened and mentioned he was trying to confirm if the first number belonged to Tony's cell phone. He called the number and asked to speak with Tony. He mentioned that a woman had given him the number as a potential trainer. He told her to let him know if he is available so she can visit him if he has any free time. One day at the gym, Brenda picked up the phone. "Hi, are you Tony?" she inquired. "I'm Jennifer, yes. A woman who visited my hair salon recommended you as a potential trainer." "No, I didn't know her. But we were discussing getting healthier, and she recommended you." "Of course. Yes, I am 24 years old. I am 5 feet 6 inches tall and a bit overweight at the moment. I weigh around 130 pounds. I feel like you are looking at me through the phone. I think I could feel better if I lost some weight and reached around 115 pounds, but I'm okay with how I look now. Thank you so much. Are there any available positions? I understand. One of your clients has recently decided to stop working with you, so now you have an available spot. Awesome. I look forward to meeting you soon so we can discuss what I need to do to complete the job. Thank you, Tony. I will meet you shortly. Mark was sitting there, amazed by what Brenda had just done. She confirmed that the person from the gym was Tony and found out that he had indeed flirted with her, women who hired him as a personal trainer. She also confirmed that he had an opportunity because someone had dropped out. Mark believed that the person who left school must have been me. Oh no! Sarah has already phoned Tony to inform him about the situation and advise him to be very cautious. However, even though he felt really bad, he found humor in Brenda's words. He didn't know or care how much she actually liked him, he just thought she was attractive. She didn't need to lose any weight at all. Mark smiled at her and said she was very funny and that he thought she was great. She should stay away from Tony because of how she was acting. He told Brenda, "Nobody has a better body than you." Brenda smiled brightly and said, "Thank you, sir, your compliments make me feel embarrassed. Honestly, Mark, you were so attractive. I don't get why your wife would cheat. In another place, any girl would be fortunate to have you as both a friend and partner." Mark smiled. "Brenda, 2 years ago I wasn't as attractive as you say, but that doesn't make it right. She was unfaithful to me. I appreciate your help and would like to chat more, but I should probably go home. I am very grateful for your help in finding information about Tony and for boosting my self-esteem." "You're welcome." Mark went back home, and since it was late, he simply went to sleep. As he got into bed, he glanced at Sarah and felt a strong sense of sadness and letdown. He felt really bad, but he knew things would get even worse soon. Sarah had just woken up a bit when he came in and told Mark, "I love you." Mark just made a noise and turned away from her, attempting to sleep. He couldn't fall asleep immediately and spent some time lying there thinking. He was sure he heard Sarah crying a little, but she had clearly calmed down. To some extent. In the morning he woke up and found Sarah cuddled up next to him. He could feel her body against his back, which made him feel even more awake in the morning. When she noticed that Mark had woken up, she reached out to him and placed her hand on his hard object. "Mark, I'm sorry for what I said. Let's make up." Mark knew he was in trouble if he remained in that bed. He could never say no to Sarah. He was sure he would give in if he stayed around her and she charmed him. He made up his mind and said, "Sorry, Sarah. I have to leave this morning, and I'm running out of time. I also mentioned that you were disconnected, and that's how it will stay, so please don't. Please, give it another try." Mark got up, took a shower, and went to work. Sarah thought to herself, about Mark. "I know I deserve this because of what I said, but it hurts a lot." When Mark arrived at work, he told his boss that he was having a small issue at home. He quickly explained it to his boss, and was told he could take as much time off as he needed to deal with it, acting on his doubts. Mark's boss also provided him with the contact information of a high-quality electronics supplier who could help him get surveillance gear. Thank you for paying attention. This tale is not finished, and things are going to become even more exciting. Keep watching to find out what happens next.